The gospel reading today is from the Gospel of Mark. This is chapter 10, verses 13 through 16. And once again, I am using a translation called The Message. Seems like I've been doing that quite a bit recently, but it's really not as common for me to do that. Even so, I think hearing familiar words in a slightly different way might help us to become even more aware of what Christ is saying to us through the Scriptures. Mark 10, verses 13 through 16. The people brought children to Jesus, hoping he might touch them. And the disciples shooed them off, but Jesus was irate and let them know it. Don't push these children away. Don't ever get between them and me. These children are at the very center of life in the kingdom. Mark this, unless you accept God's kingdom in the simplicity of a child, you'll never get in. And then gathering the children up in his arms, he laid his hands of blessing on them. This is the reading of the word of our Lord. You may be seated. So we are taking a journey during Lent, and this journey will be difficult. It will be challenging, but ultimately it's a journey that leads to the cross and beyond. That's why I've got our sign here for the journey. If you were going to Woodstock in 1969, wouldn't you have had a sign on the back of your VW bus? Woodstock or bust, So we're going Golgotha or bust, because that's where we're headed. On the journey, we will be faced with dilemmas. We'll be faced with temptations. We might be faced with some suffering, and there will be issues that come up. Those issues might be jobs, or money, or power, or relationships, or maybe esteem. Along the way, we will encounter Jesus. At least that's my hope. And maybe even discover our own real selves. We are on a journey to hope. Now, when you go on a journey, you got to pack a bag. There's some things you got to take with you, right? And I don't know what the best way to do all this is. I guess I'm going to come down here. And so I've packed a few things in this bag that we'll be taking with us on our journey. If I can get it open. Let's see here. If you're going on a journey, you need a map. So I bought the Rand McNally. That's a good map, right? That should get us where we're going right there. But you can use GPS if you want to. But honestly, I like a map too. Yeah, you got it. That's what I grew up with, boy. And let's see, probably get hungry on the road, so I brought some food along. Excuse me. And one thing I know that I'm always going to need when I'm on the road, it's coffee. Yeah, you can't be. How would I get started each day if I didn't have there's something missing here, though. Wait a minute. What am I going to do with that? So I asked Rhonda what she would take on the road if she was on the road, and she said, well, it wouldn't be what you take. I got to have my curling iron and my blow dryer, and I thought, No wonder it takes so many bags, for. At any rate, so I guess Rhonda's coming along. That basic. There's still something missing here. Where are my moose jammies? See, before I ever moved to Maine, Rhonda bought me moose jammies, which, I understand every real Mainer has moose jammies. You all have them, right? Yeah? I wore my moose jammy one time when I was visiting Maine, and we were at Nicole's house, and she made fun of me, which I thought was really rude, And I need my moose jammies for sure. There's a couple other things in there that we'll be talking about as we go on today. So be prepared for a journey. Now, one of the things that I would like you to consider, one of the things that I think is important on a journey is a companion. We need to have someone with us to encourage us. But even more than that, we need to have someone with us that we can encourage. So here's what I'm asking. I'm asking if each of you would choose a companion for the journey. I was trying to think how we might do that this year here. We have so many folks that aren't here with us. Some of them are here in the summer. Some of them just aren't well right now, and they can't be here because of health. And I'm thinking, if you could just choose a person like that can't be here. And the idea of this companion thing is that maybe you'd send them a note once in a while. If they're local, maybe you could stop and have coffee with them. There's a lot of a phone call just to be an encouragement to somebody. So this is what I'm asking from you, that you choose a companion for our Lenten journey, and that you don't have to tell me, you don't have to tell anybody, but just do something that you wouldn't just automatically do anyway, right? Send a note, make a phone call, have a cup of coffee, whatever you think. And there's lots of people from this congregation you can choose, or you can choose someone else entirely. It does not have to be someone from here that can be your companion, but we're going to be talking about them, and I hope that each of you will choose a companion for the journey. So today we're talking about roadblocks along the journey. And you heard the passage that we talked about, the children coming to Jesus. I think I already told you that my mother said children are to be seen, not heard, right? I think that's maybe what the disciples thought. We've got adult conversations going on here, and these children are interrupting it. Just get them away from Jesus. Get them away. Move them aside. Send them off to the playground. Isn't there a babysitter somewhere that can take care of these kids? Don't bother Jesus with this. Jesus had a very specific response, didn't he? He said, don't push these children away. At least that's the way it's translated in the Message. Don't push these children away. Don't ever get between them and me. Roadblocks are anything that get between us and Christ. Those are roadblocks. And when we're on a journey in the summer, we run into a lot of roadblocks, don't we? Yeah, they're always doing heavy construction on the highways, and traffic is down to one lane and slowed down. And for me personally, when you finally break out of that and it says resume speed, oh, I'm free, just for a moment. Just for a moment. And here's the other point that's kind of important. We're all God's children, aren't we? Every single one of us. We do not exist if He didn't make us. And as God's children, we need to find ways to avoid roadblocks. So, the disciples ended up being a roadblock to the children, and Jesus was having none of us. None of it. So, what gets in our way? What are the kinds of things that come between us and Christ? It could be anything, couldn't it? Anything that becomes more important to us than Christ is a roadblock. It could be a relationship. It could be a job. It could be an addiction. It could be anything that we pursue harder and longer than our relationship with Christ. And so I'm wondering, do you have people in your life that encourage your walk? Do you have people that are with you on this journey that we'll just call life today? Do you have people that pray for you? And I'm telling you, that's a powerful one, isn't it? Do you have people that you know pray for you? Do you have people that demonstrate a life, demonstrate a life that is close to Christ, so that we can see what that looks like, and so that we have something that we can look forward to attaining for ourselves? This person might be like a mentor, or a companion, someone that's a little ahead of us in their Christian walk, someone that we can use as a role model in our own walk. It might be a helpmate. It might be a road warrior. If you're on the road, you need a road warrior, right? Well, I remember seeing a video of a young lady, and she had decided that she wanted to do something special. And it was between her senior year of high school and her beginning as a freshman in college. And she had an idea, and she rounded up all of her friends, and they made sandwiches. And she went to a very poor part of Boston and started serving sandwiches and bottles of water to the homeless people there. And the whole thing just grew and grew, so more and more people were involved. People were donating things for the sandwiches, and when she talked, I remember it was just a blur. She was so excited that her tongue moved faster than my ears could possibly comprehend as she told about this passion that she had. One of the things that she said during that video was, "I can't believe I'm friends with them. They're my friends." She said, it's fun to serve them sandwiches, but what was really fun for her was to get to know them, to learn their names, to hear their stories. She said, some people are concerned about safety, but I've never been concerned about safety. And I thought to myself, the parents of some of those kids with her are probably concerned about safety. And then the more I thought about it, I thought, well, wait a minute. She's made friends with all those people. I think if anybody threatened her, people would be coming out of the bushes to protect her, because she had made friends with so many of the homeless people in Boston. We need to find ways to eliminate roadblocks on the journey for other people. And it might be as simple as a conversation. It might be as simple as a sandwich. It might be as simple as a prayer. We all have relationships in our life, some that build us up and some that tear us down. And those relationships might be considered like toxic relationships. It might be a person that fuels our addiction, whatever that might be. And it doesn't have to be drugs. It doesn't have to be alcohol. It could be something as simple as food. There's all kinds of addictions that are unhealthy. And if we have a person in our life that fuels that addiction, then they're helping create this roadblock that stands between us and Christ. It might be a person that fuels anger. It might be a person that takes us down a side path, something we might call a bunny trail. One time I thought I would do Rhonda this great favor. She was in Indiana. She was lonely, and she missed home. And I thought, fine. For a Christmas present, I bought us 2 tickets to Maine. And the tickets left, I don't know, our trip was just a few days after Christmas. It was in January, early in January, and we jumped on a plane and we headed to Portland. That was where I could get the best price. And we rented a car and we had a hotel right there by the airport because we got in late and we went to bed. And when we woke up the next morning, there was about 15 inches of snow on our rental car. There hadn't been any snow at all when we got there that night before, and it had snowed. I had no idea it was going to do that. I didn't even have anything to scrape the windshield off with, nothing. So we're supposed to be driving to the county that day. We got in the rental car and we headed north from Portland. The highway hadn't been plowed at all. It was awful. And all these signs kept saying 45 mile an hour, blinking yellow signs that they had. And trucks were going by us at 70. And I could hardly keep the car on the road. The traction was so bad and the ruts were so deep where it hadn't been plowed. And finally I said to Rhonda, I've had enough of this. We're going to find another way to the county. And so I took the next exit off the highway and started down a road that I thought went in the general direction of the county. So you have to know something about Indiana to appreciate this story. All our roads are laid out in a grid. They go north and south, and they go east and west. And if you want to take another road, you just hop over a mile, and that one goes north and south too, or another mile, and that one goes north and south too, and they're pretty much straight. There might be a little deviation here and there, but there are dozens and dozens of ways to get from point A to point B. Not in Maine. No. I was learning. So we drove down this road for half an hour or so, and I thought, well, there was a guy out snow blowing his driveway, and I thought, let's just stop and ask directions. So I stopped and said, we're trying to get to the county. Where does this road go? Is it going to... He said, oh, it's easy. He said, no problem. You just turn around, go back about a half an hour, and get on the highway. Yeah, where I got off. You see, there's little bunny trails. I didn't know that when they named roads around here, like, the Pascal Road, that's the road. There is no other way to get there. If you can't go that way, you're not going to Presque Isle. That's just the way it is. So, okay. We went back, got back on the highway on the same exit that we had gotten off, and continued on our way to the county. It did get a little better, as I recall, the further north we went. But it's easy to get on a side path or a bunny trail that goes nowhere, especially in Maine. That might even get us into trouble. Sometimes we have a person that convinces us that we don't need God at all. One of my churches, I had a person like that. He borrowed money from the church. One of the things that we did was give scholarships to go to school at that church. And he borrowed money from us to go to college. He wanted to go to college. He was a young man with a family, 2 or 3 kids, and a wife, and he wanted to go to school. And that's something we were 100% behind as a congregation, and so we loaned him the money to go to school. It wasn't long after that he didn't come to church anymore. I didn't understand it. I would try to call him. He wouldn't return my calls. Finally, I went down and knocked on his door, and he agreed to have lunch with me. I took him to lunch, and I said, I don't understand. You know, they were so involved in the church, and after he started school, he stopped coming to church. Well, the bottom line was he had decided that he was too smart for this God stuff now. Yeah. He was educated. He knew better. He didn't need a God as a crutch in his life anymore. He was convinced that he was smarter than that now. He never did come back to church. Last time I saw him, he came to church because his son had been in my confirmation class, and his son was being confirmed and baptized and brought in as a member. And after that, none of them ever came back to church. There's all kinds of things that can be roadblocks on our journey. They can be employers, they can be parents, they can be spouses, they can be a stranger. Here's what Paul says to all of that. It's Hebrews 13. Stay on good terms with each other. Again, Hebrews 13, it's 1 through 4. Sorry. Stay on good terms with each other, held together by love. Be ready with a meal or a bed when it's needed. Why some have extended hospitality to angels without ever knowing it. Regard prisoners as if you were in prison with them. Look on victims of abuse as if what happened to them had happened to you. Honor marriage and guard the sacredness of sexual intimacy between wife and husband. Pretty powerful, isn't it? Pretty powerful. Have you ever thought about the idea that you had hosted an angel without ever knowing it? Now think about that girl I was telling you about in Boston who was serving the homeless. Wouldn't that be something? It'd be something if she had served a sandwich to an angel. Now, this may sound silly to you. I don't know. But it's scriptural. Did you know that? It's scriptural. It's something that really happens. There are apparently angels among it, and we may not even know when we encounter one. Regard prisoners as if you were in prison with them. That's pretty powerful. Look on victims of abuse as if what happened to them happened to you. Wow. I was trying to summarize this passage with some words, and I came up with 3 words, okay? And the first one is empathize. Empathize. I mean, if you are regarding a prisoner as if you were in prison with them, then you're experiencing what they experience. That's empathy, when we experience it along with the other person. The second word, first word's empathize, the second word is sympathize. Empathize is when we experience it like the other person did. Sympathize is when we understand it in our mind. We understand that they were hurt. We understand that they were victimized. We understand the difficult circumstances that they've been in. And the last word, empathize, sympathize, proselytize. The last word means that we help them to return to God in spite of their circumstances. Help them to return to God. We don't buy in to the barrier scenario, whatever it is that's standing between them and God. We choose to help remove that barrier. So, I would like you to have a traveling companion. I would like you to do notes and emails and lunch and I don't know, shovel their drive or whatever makes sense to you. Some way that we can make a difference in somebody's life and help to remove roadblocks. This journey that we're on is called a journey to hope. And there's a few things that we're going to need along the way. And let's see. I've got a couple things here. It's a good idea to have some bandages and things to take with us along the way because, we're bound to have some injuries, stub a toe, who knows what. There's some ointment in here. Triple antibiotic ointment. Now, I was thinking about, you ever heard of that free zone stuff? Yeah, they use it to take warts off and what have you. I was thinking, wouldn't it be great if we had some kind of a free zone wart remover that was like a scar remover, one that would take emotional scars away from us, because that's a huge roadblock, isn't it? Those voices that ring in our heads from our childhood, you're no good, you'll never amount to anything. Emotional scars. Emotional scars because of trauma. Emotional scars because of health issues. Emotional scars because of loss. Those are barriers between us and Christ. And I guess we have one. It's called Prozac, right? Isn't that kind of an emotional salve, I suppose? But yeah. So we need this first aid kit here in order. And the other thing that I've got here, are there any journalers? Now, you're wonderful. Good for you. I still have my mom's journals from our trips. In 1957, we drove to California from Indiana for my uncle's wedding. I still remember parts of that trip out there. And Mom, on every trip, she wrote a daily log, of what happened on that trip. And I still have those daily logs of what happened on the trip. If you haven't journaled, I would highly recommend that you try it. Journaling can be a way to remove roadblocks. It can be a way to, you know what the fun thing is, journaling is? You can write anything to God in here you want to. Anything. It's like prayer in penmanship, You can write down all the struggles. You can write down all the stories of being on the wrong path. You can write down all your hopes and dreams in here. and they're just yours. You don't belong to anybody else. They're private, they're personal. But it really helps a lot of people to be able to get that out of them and to get it on paper. If you haven't journaled, a commitment to journaling just during Lent might be helpful. You don't have to have a fancy journal book, although I've got one here. You can do it on just plain old paper. Yeah, it doesn't take a special book. So I would say journaling would be a fun commitment to make. And if you haven't given something up, maybe this could take the place of giving something up, trying something new, that you could have that journal. The one thing for sure is I don't want you on this journey alone. I want you to go with someone. Build a relationship so that you have a companion on this. So today, maybe you could think about who will be your companion on this journey. God bless.